Hi, everyone. My name is Miss Jen from CodeSpeak Labs, and I'm wearing my Mario hat today because we are coding a super fun Super Mario Party game called Parasol Plummet. So if you've played this game before in Super Mario Party, you might recognize it. But it is a game where you have characters who are being pushed up by the wind. You can control them to move left and right, and you're trying to collect as many coins as you can until the timer runs out. And what I'm doing as a player is I'm using my left and right arrow key to make it move left and right. And I'm pressing the space key to actually close the umbrella to make my character fall. And then when time runs out in 3, 2, 1, it's going to say you got 23 points. All right, so for some of you, we might have started this project in class. So good to see you. You can see what I look like without my mask on now. But the great thing with this video is you can fast forward, you can pause, you can rewind, and you can skip ahead to the part that you're on. But I'm gonna start from the beginning just so that students who haven't gotten started yet know all the steps that they need. And what I actually am going to do is I'm going to break this game up into 3 parts. Each part is going to have its own video. The first video is going to be focused on our primary character and all of its code. The second video is going to be working on the coin code. And the third video is going to be some of the fun advanced features that are in the project, but that are completely optional. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to share my screen again. And you'll probably notice that in Scratch, it does not normally have all of these fun Super Mario characters. So what the CodeSpeak Labs team did was create a project that specifically has these special 3 Mario sprites here. So the character, the coin, and the umbrella, which is actually an optional advanced sprite that you can put in. And so what you need to do is when you go to this URL, and so the link is actually below this video in the notes section, scratch.mit.edu/projects/628162455. And what you need to actually do is sign into your account. So you should use your account now. And if you don't have one yet, it's free. Make a new project by actually clicking Remix. Okay, so you can see here again, I can tell I'm signed in because my username is appearing here. And I'm going to go ahead and click this Remix button so that I have this now in my account. And you'll notice again, there's no code here, so we're going to walk through the code together. Okay, so once you're all set up, this video is going to really focus on our character sprite. So the first thing we're going to do is the block that we use most often for the beginning of a project is the when green flag clicked box. So I'm going to go ahead and go to events and drag over when green flag clicked. And blow that up here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to use a forever loop, because this first bit of code is going to be all about having, when the player presses the right arrow, it moves to the right. And when he or she presses the left arrow, they move to the left. And we want it to always, always, always be doing that. So whenever we want to do something that is always, always going to happen throughout the game without stopping, we have to use this forever loop. Now the forever loop is one of those blocks that looks like it has a big alligator mouth. So whenever there's a hole like this, whenever there's this mouth, then you know in Scratch, you need to fill it with something. Because right now the computer doesn't know what do you want to repeat forever and ever. Okay, so there's going to be 2 important sections here. The first one is going to be for the right arrow key. So I'm going to use a conditional block, which is just an if-then block. And you'll notice I'm pulling it from over here. The if-then block is also one of those blocks that has a big mouth. Now the forever block wants to eat the if-then block, so it goes inside. You'll notice I'm not using if-then else. This is a very common error. That is a crazy two-mouth beast. I'm looking for the one just with one mouth, if-then. And then I want to see if the user is pressing the right arrow key, then I want to do something. So the computer needs to sense whether or not the user is pressing that key. And so this block over here, key space pressed, I can go ahead and change that from space to the right arrow. Now this is a hexagon shaped block. It needs to find a hexagon space to fall into. You'll notice when I get closer, and it's easiest to approach from the right, it starts glowing white, and that means, boop, I can drop it. So now it says when green flag clicked, forever, if arrow, right arrow pressed, then. So I want it to move to the right. So now some of you might have used X, Y coordinates in math class before, and some of you might not have. The main thing to remember at this point for X and Y is that X and Y coordinates tell you location. And specifically, the X value tells you how much left and right, and the Y tells you how much up and down. One way I like to remember that is by saying X to the left, Y to the sky. X to the left, Y to the sky. So I want to change X. So I'm going to my blue motion section, and I want to change X by 5. So I'm going to go, where's change X? There you are. And right now the default value is 10. I'm going to change that to 5. Now I'm going to pause here. So one thing that's really important to do when you're coding is to always check to see if your code is doing what you think it should be doing. So when I press the green flag, nothing happens. Why is that? Well, I didn't press anything yet. So right now it's waiting to sense whether or not someone is going to press the right arrow. So boop, boop, boop. Yep, now I'm pressing the right arrow. And indeed, Luigi is going right. Nothing happens when he touches the coin because we haven't coded that yet. So my code is doing exactly what I want it to do. Now, if you want to do the left arrow, you can go ahead and repeat those same exact steps that I just showed you. And that could be good practice for you. Or you can let me show you a shortcut. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a mouse right now, which means there's a left click and there's a right click. If you are on a Chromebook, like I know many of you are, to make a right click, you actually put 2 fingers together and then you press the trackpad. So it does take a little practice. So I'm going to right click this if then block. Then I'm going to select duplicate. And what that's going to do is actually create, whoa, as you might guess, a duplicate or a copy or a clone. Lots of different words that mean the same thing. But just a copy of those same blocks. But I don't need 2 blocks with right arrow. I just need to turn the other one into left arrow. Boop. And instead of going positive X, to go the opposite direction, I'm going to go -5. Now, -5 looks the same as -5. And the minus key is on your keyboard right next to the 0. So if you look at the row with the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and then you'll have the minus key. So that will make it negative, and then I just put a 5. So now you'll notice when I press the left arrow, I can now move left. And one thing that's really cool is if you watch here, so as I move the left button, you'll notice that that part will actually move. So this goes, it minuses 5 every time, because this will always tell you what is the X coordinate and what's the Y coordinate. So notice the Y is staying the same because I'm not changing yet up and down. I'm only changing X to the left or right. So X keeps changing. Great. Okay, so this is the code for right arrow and left arrow. Okay, now there's different ways to do this. So I'm going to show you one way of making Luigi fly into the sky. You can probably guess which coordinate I'll be using for that. So I'm going to go ahead and save my project real quick on this upper right hand corner. Then I'm going to go ahead and add another when green flag click block. So you'll notice this code is not connected, and that's fine. I'm just going to put it next to it over here. And I'm going to leave the code I already did alone. Okay. So as we discussed, X and Y tell you location. So I want Luigi specifically starting in the lower center of my screen. So the way that I do that is I go to motion and I do go to XY. And you'll notice the default is it will put in the XY coordinates of wherever your sprite currently is. And it'll adjust for that. But I don't want it in this kind of weird random spot. I want to change it to actually X coordinate 0, which you can see puts it right in the middle. And I'm going to put it, I want a little bit down. So I'm going to put Y as -100. So you'll notice, boop, now it is below there. And you can play around with the XY coordinates here, see how it moves where your character goes, and you can watch how the X and Y change. So I am now going to make a variable. So when you all are using this in math class one day, you will be so thankful, like, I already have experience doing this in coding. So a variable is just a container that can hold something. So in this case, we want it to hold a number. And we want that number to vary. We want to change. So that's why we're going to give it a name. We're going to give our container a name. And then we're going to change up what number goes inside that container. So I know that's kind of a tricky concept at first, but after we're starting to use it, it'll become more clear. Okay, so the variable we're going to name is actually a concept you've probably heard about in science class. It's called gravity. So in the real world, gravity is this force that's keeping us onto the earth, keeping us onto the ground. Now, gravity doesn't actually exist in our game because the only things that exist in this game are the things that we as the computer coders put in. So we are going to create gravity so that we can actually control how our character is moving up and down. And gravity is going to work different than it does in this real world, but we're going to decide how it works. So you'll notice there's a section called variables right here. It is the dark orangey section. So when I click on that, I'm going to have to create my own variable. I'm going to call it gravity. So that's Gravity. And I'll leave it for all sprites. And you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, it actually is appearing here. I don't need it to show, but I'll just leave it for now. It will always display what is the value of your variable at the time. And anytime I want it to go away, I can just uncheck this box. Boop. I can recheck it if I want it to show. Okay. So at the beginning, I'm going to set gravity to 0. So I'm basically saying there's a container called gravity, and the first value I'm going to put on it is 5. And then, but right now it doesn't do anything, right? I click my green flag. I can still use my arrow keys, but he's not actually moving anywhere up or down. The way that we change that is we use our variable gravity to determine how much Luigi is flying. And then we use the space key to make him change his flight. Okay, so what does that mean? So it means we actually need to control how gravity is being used. So I'm going to take a forever block because we want it to be doing this throughout the game. So forever, I'm going to change one of my coordinates by gravity. So do you think it's X or do you think it's Y? So let's think of our rhyme. X to the left, Y to the sky. So if you guess Y, you are correct. So we're going to change Y by a certain number. But instead of this fixed number that always stays the same, we're going to change it by gravity. So we're going to go back to our variable section. And we're going to bring gravity into boop, this block. So let's see if our code is working. Click my green flag. Whoop, and Luigi is flying to the sky. And you'll notice as he's flying, look at what happens to this Y coordinate. So when I start and I click it, it immediately goes to negative 100. And it very quickly keeps adding another 5, just continuously, because that is what we set our force of gravity to be. Whoop. So now he's flying, but he can't come back down. So how is he going to get all these coins if he's stuck to the ceiling, right? We're stuck in the sky. Okay, so I'm going to now add the 2-mouth monster that we talked about earlier, but that we didn't use. So let's go back, see if you can find it. So I'm going to use the if, then, else. Whoop. So again, the way that you know whether or not this is the right one is it has the crazy 2 mouths. If, then, else. And it goes inside the forever block. Whoop. So again, going from the right is easier. When it glows yellow, it's time to let go. If you accidentally, let's say, put it on top or have it flipped so that the if is eating the forever, you can always just take out the blocks that are wrong. You always want to pull from the bottom and fix that. When you pull from the top, everything goes with it. But when you're separating, you want to pull from the bottom. Okay. So now we need the space key. So we have to sense in the sensing area, the space key. So I'm going to sense if, now what? The space key is pressed. I'm going to put it in the hexagon. And I'm going to say, if it is being pressed, let's go ahead and set gravity to -5. And then if else, so else means it's not pressed. I'm going to set gravity 5. So you'll notice this is the same as what we set as our condition from before. So by default, for him to just keep floating up to the sky, gravity should be 5. So that means if there's no space key pressed, yeah, you just keep it floating up to 5. But if the space key is pressed, we're like, no, we want it to go down. So that's why it's really important. We need it to negative number. So we need this one to be -5. So that's going down. Okay, so moment of truth. See if this works. So when I press the space key, woo! So now Luigi has this really cool like gliding situation going on. Woo! Because he is naturally just getting pulled up into the sky. And you can see how my gravity variable, the value keeps changing, 5, -5, based on if I'm pressing the space key. And then I'm also pressing left and right to make it. So now you can kind of hop around. All right. So this concludes the basic code for the character. When you're ready to move on, go ahead and click to the next video where we'll be coding the coin.